the tradition of the Scandinavian settlers who came here with their Viking lore. Summer is cherished as a respite from the cold north winds. Today, the good people of the Land of Lakes will be treated to the inaugural running of the Children's Grand Prix of Minnesota. The hottest collection of Ford and Chevrolet road racers in the country ready to take to the streets. And if this event comes even close to the 8 that have preceded it this year, it will most assuredly vanquish any remaining chills from the winter of '95. Hi, everybody. I'm Rick Benjamin. Welcome to our flag-to-flag coverage of this great event, the first Children's Grand Prix through the streets of Minneapolis. This is a special event for two reasons. First, this ought to be a great Trans Am race. And second, it's being held to raise money for charity. The funds raised by the event will go to help kids who are affected by the cancer disease. It's part of the Cancer Kids Fund of the Children's Health Care effort here in the city of Minneapolis. And all week long, these Trans Am drivers and crews and car owners have really opened their hearts to the kids affected by cancer in this area. And at times, it's been hard to tell who's gotten the most out of the effort. The kids affected by the disease or the drivers themselves.
Hello, this is Tommy Kendall, fresh off my win from Cleveland last weekend, and I'm here with a couple of Minneapolis's newest race fans. We've got Jordan, and much like any star of his magnitude, Jordan has his own spokesman. That's his sister, Jackie. And Jackie, what do you think Jordan likes the most about the Grand Prix? Do you think it's the speed, the food, the colors? What do you think?
The color.
The color of the cars, huh? Do you think he has a favorite car out of all of them?
Yeah.
Now, I might be a little biased, but is it the number 11 All-Sport black and green car?
Yeah.
Now that is my kind of race fan.
Well, Tommy, I think something in black will look much better with a bow tie. Hi, I'm Ron Fellows, winner of the St. Petersburg race. I'm here with my buddy Patrick. Patrick, how's it feel to have the Trans Am Series invade your city?
That's kind of cool because you don't get to see much of it around here. You won't mainly see it in the bigger cities.
And I got to ask you who your favorite driver is.
I don't really have a favorite driver. I pretty much like them all and their cars.
Well, we'll try and fix that.
I'm Jamie Gallus. I won Long Beach this year, and we've made a new friend here named Brendan. Brendan, you want to say something to the camera?
Hi, my team is Jonathan. I wish you was here. Sorry you ain't here. Bye-bye.
That certainly sets the tone for today's event. Now, as you can hear in the background, they're getting ready to go here in Minneapolis. This is the 5th of 7 temporary street courses the Trans Am Tour will visit in 1996. Street races are always different and demanding, and this is a brand new layout. Ought to be very challenging for these drivers, wouldn't you say, David Hobbs?
Well, Rick, as you can see from the map, it's a pretty typical downtown circuit with 13 turns jammed into 1.5 miles. And, of course, they're all right-angle turns, although there is a nice selection of lefts and rights. Now, the front straightaway looked like it was going to be very, very long, i.e. extremely fast, and not enough runoff area. So they foreshortened it a little bit, and turn 1, 2, and 3 is a left, right, left sweeper. Now, of course, these circuits take a lot of setting up for the car, and with them is Max Jones, who's the team manager for the Roush team. Max, how do you really set a car up for one of these point-and-squirt circuits?
Well, a circuit like this, you need to have your braking under control, and a lot of passing under braking, and so then the right-hand corners, you got to have it turn in good, and then getting off the corners, you got to have hookup. So those are the 3 areas that we work on.
So they are good brakes and good hookup. With more on this circuit, let's go down to San Posey.
David, this is the second major straightaway on the track, and I'm down here in turn 6 with Will Moody, who's the team manager for Ron Fellows and Jamie Gallus. And Will, tell us about setting a car up for these tight turns that follow this straightaway.
This section here of turn 6 through turn 10 is very tight, but it's very important to get through here quickly in order to have a fast lap time. What I need to do for my drivers for the car setup here is the car needs to turn in very quickly and it needs to get out of the corner.
Okay, that's the story on the course. Rick, back to you.
Certainly ought to be a very challenging layout for these drivers when they get ready to go racing here in just a couple of moments. We'll be back with more of our coverage of the Children's Grand Prix of Minnesota after this. Racing with the Children's Grand Prix. Derek Daly is on the racetrack for us.
Indeed, in glorious sunshine as the temperature gets into the 80s, but it wasn't all sunshine for the weekend because yesterday we had a torrential downpour during the last qualifying session. In fact, the only qualifying session, as it turned out, for the Trans Am runners. The rain came down and Leighton Reese was one of the first men into the wall. Hard in with his left side and then plows into the tires, but he came back to qualify a superb 8th. Boris Said got it all wrong and had a simple 360-degree spin at the end of the straight. Then the teammates got in all sorts of trouble. Tommy Kendall down the escape road and John Gooding no harm yet, but looking back, so what's the impact here? Oh, Don Sack plows into the back. He has no injuries, however, his car was destroyed in the impact, and John Gooding ended up with a sore neck. Now, then qualifying, the Ray Bestos Ford Mustang, driven by Dorsey Schrader, was the fastest man by over a second, and because of the inverted grid, he starts in 5th place. Now, his teammate, who is Brian Simo, was very much the star of qualifying, because I saw high fives by your crew members, Brian, at the end of qualifying. And you would have to say consistency may be a word we associated with you earlier in the season, but now sheer speed is what it's all about.
Well, that's what we're working for. Last year was my first full year here in Trans Am. It's my second year. It's time to start getting after it a little bit. And, well, I tell you, last place I ever thought I'd make Fast 5 is in the rain in a street course, but the crew was happy, car was great. You know, what can I say?
Now, with the team in such a strong position for the Drivers' Championship, do you ever consider having to help Dorsey Schrader?
Well, you know, you have to take those things into consideration. It's what's best overall. And, you know, Dorsey and I are going to race. We have that agreement between us, but if he's running quicker, you know, I might be cooperative, and I think that he deserves it. He's one of the best drivers out here, and with the inverted grid, we got to be smart here.
Well, we're just seconds from the start of the engines here, but before we go to that, let's go to David Hobbs and this week's Auto Week update.
Going through tech just moments before activities start here this weekend is the number 15 Rocket Sports Chevrolet. We haven't seen that car before, but now it's got a driver, and what a driver he is too. Currently second in the Spanish Sedan Car Championship, and also a Formula One driver. Eric van der Poel, you've driven everywhere, including Le Mans. Are you looking forward to this race?
Yes, for me it's really a new experience, and I did one test in Sebring last year. Paul Gentilozzi invited me, and I enjoy so much in the car, and I wanted to do some more. And he said, okay, we do a race. Okay, going. And now I'm here. I'm very happy. Everything is new. I have to learn the name of the other drivers, the cars, everything. I'm like a tourist, but I'm very happy about that. And thank you to Paul and all the teams. It's a very good experience.
Well, Eric van der Poel might be a brand new name in Trans Am racing, but Minnesota native Jim Durhard couldn't resist the temptation to come back and do race number 148, by far the most in Trans Am racing. Jim, what's the plans for the next season?
Well, David, you're right. I couldn't resist coming back and running Minneapolis race. It's such a great cause. But the plans for next season are for me to take over as team owner and run Kenny Wilden, you know, the young man that we ran at Mossport the last couple of years, and go on from there and make the transition to Tom Gloy type.
Well, if Jim Durhag wants to join the likes of Tom Gloy, that means he's going to be involved in a very bitter Manufacturers' Championship for points, which at this point, just halfway through the season, is equally shared by Chevrolet and Ford with 62 points each. And of Ford's 62 points, Tom Gloy Racing has got 39, Roush Racing has got 23. The Chevrolet points are a little bit more split up. American Equipment's got 25, Pickett Racing's got 21, and Rocket Sports have got 16. So there you've got 5 major teams contributing to the points for their various Manufacturers' Championships. This update has been brought to you by Auto Week magazine, which for a limited time only is being offered for only $19.95 for 52 weeks of exciting racetrack action, a savings of $80 off the regular newsstand price. Don't wait, this offer won't last forever. Call 1-800-232-1520. That's 1-800-232-1520 and call today.
Here's how they'll light up today for the Children's Grand Prix of Minneapolis. On the pole in car number 5, Paul Gentilozzi in his Rocket Sports Chevrolet. Tommy Kendall outside row 1, last week's winner in Cleveland in his All-Sport 4. Second row, young Jamie Gallus in his Chevrolet, and Brian Simo in his number 22 Valvoline Mustang. Third row has Dorsey Schrader, the current series point leader, in his Tom Gloy Ford, the number 12, and Ron Fellows from Canada outside the Fast 5 today in his Sunoco car. Fourth row with Boris Said in one of the Roush Mustangs, the 14, and Leighton Reese from the area here in his converted ASA car, that Pontiac. Fifth row, Scott Sharp from Connecticut in his Rain-X Chevrolet Camaro, and Eric van der Poel, the Belgian, in one of the Rocket Sports cars. Sixth row has Greg Pickett in his Chevrolet. Dale Phelan from South Carolina in his Phelan Combustion Ford. And Bill Saunders in seventh row with one of the Highwaymaster cars. Max Lagarde in another Chevrolet will be outside row number 7 today. The eighth row with Dino Crescentini in his Chevrolet. John Miller from Tennessee in his Rocket Sports car. Ninth row to Jerry Simmons from Canada in his Chevrolet, the 76. And John Gooding, the Florida grocery store owner, in his Mountain Dew Mustang, will start 18th. Row number 10, R.J. Valentine from Hingham, Massachusetts, the Pennzoil Chevrolet. And Bob Ruman in his car number 23, another Camaro. He'll start 20th. The 11th row has Rick Dittman in his number 24 back in the field today. And Jim Durhag, another local out of retirement to run in his hometown here. He's from Cheska, Minnesota. That's your starting lineup for today's Children's Grand Prix of Minneapolis. Children, the Cancer Kids Fund of the Children's Healthcare Network here. Here's some of the children affected by the disease. They lined up for a group photo for us earlier today. Let's go trackside with Derek Daly.
And here is a wonderful young man here who will be the honorary starter. This is Tyler Cohn, whose dad, Mark, is responsible for bringing this great event to this town. And Tyler has been a recipient of much of the cancer treatment from the Children's Health Center here. Tyler, have you had much practice here? This is a very big job you have.
Yep.
Have you had practice?
Yep.
Yes, indeed. He told me earlier you had practice with the checkered flag, not with the green.
He'll need to be able to use that one too, probably, before we're all done here this afternoon. Let's take a look at the point standing situation now. 8 races complete. This is round 9 of the 1996 season. Very tight battle for the title at this point between Dorsey Schrader and Tommy Kendall. Sam Posey, David Hobbs. Some of these other drivers think they've got a great chance as well before we complete the year.
Well, the season's really only just over halfway through, Rick, and there's an awful lot of racing, I think, left to be done here. And I think many surprises in store in this year's Trans Am, which I think, and David, I know, agrees with me, has been some of the finest racing we've ever seen.
Been a terrific season so far. We're going to have the benefit of some onboard rides today. Let's take it first with Ron Fellows, the American Equipment Racing Chevrolet with the Sunoco colors. Ron lines up in 6th spot today. Out of the Fast 5, very rare. They've had some motor problems this year. They've lost 13 engines total between the two cars. They've detuned the motors, really, to try to get some consistency and be able to get a couple of finishes with the 2 of Jamie Gallus and the 3 of Ron Fellows today. So that's a story we'll be following. We'll also be riding with the 2-time Trans Am champion Tommy Kendall in his all-sport Ford Mustang, the winner last week in Cleveland. Kendall with a very strong qualifying run, qualified 4th quick. He'll line up on row number 1 today alongside Paul Gentilozzi, who will have the pole. And Kendall is a guy who feels very good about this racetrack based on what he had said to me earlier.
Certainly yesterday in practice he was unbelievable. He got in and out of the corners very quickly. There you see that big patch there. That was a sinkhole last night, and this patch right here in front of us now is brand new. They just laid that moments ago. They've had some pre-races here this afternoon. It obviously started to tear up the asphalt, and they had guys down there not 10 minutes ago putting here we see them putting this stuff down just a few moments ago.
I can't believe it's dried up, can you? I
No.
mean, that stuff must be absolutely magic, because this was 5 minutes ago.
The balloons go up. We're about ready to take the green for the Children's Grand Prix. 100 miles today, and one of the other technical stories that we'll need to keep you up to date on, fuel mileage could be an issue here today.
Well, it will be if they have a green race, but of course in a street race like this, will they have a green race for 100 miles? It's pretty unlikely, because obviously the chances of getting caught out here are pretty high. But if they do have a green race, yes, by the shape of this circuit, so much 2nd and 3rd gear work, a lot of acceleration, they really pump the gas with these cars. They're figuring on being about 5 laps short, some of these teams on gas.
You see these tire barriers they have on the outside of the turns. If anybody goes wide, they're likely to dislodge some tires, and it may take some time to clean it up. So I think we're going to see a yellow flag. The question is when.
This is a very smooth racetrack, though, and compared to a lot of street circuits, it's pretty wide most of the way around.
It is, and so there's opportunities for overtaking, although the drivers, of course, like all race drivers, when they get out there and start coming around here in just over a minute, suddenly it looks an awful lot narrower than it does to us sitting in the booth here. But I think that it is one of the finest street courses I've seen. As you said, it's smooth. The promoters spent a lot of money repaving the roads down here.
Also, we'll be riding with the pace car today. He is off the course. We should be ready for a green flag. Paul Gentilozzi, who won at Mosport several weeks ago, will bring us to the green, coming through turn 12 and 13 and up the long main straightaway. Tyler Cohen, our honorary starter today with the SCCA's flagman Mike Jennings on top of the flag stand. Glad you're with us to bring you the action of the Trans Am in Minneapolis and underway. Gentilozzi and Kendall take him down the main straightaway toward turn 1, and Gentilozzi with the early jump into that dogleg.
Whoa, locks them all up there on the way in there, so that's put a big flat spot on his tire right off there, lap 1.
Oh, Dorsey Schrader almost forced off the road.
Dorsey Schrader, who was quickest yesterday after the rain, did a fantastic time in the rain, almost forced up the road there by Boris Sen, as Tommy Kendall now tries to get around Paul Gentilozzi. They're on board with Tommy Kendall looking back at Jamie Gallus.
Kendall and Fellows in the Gallus. They've had all those motor problems all season long, trying to just take a little power out of the motors and get a good finish here today. Meantime, Genelosi is your leader. Kendall giving chase into turn 5.
Yeah, Kendall's giving chase because he wants to get around. Kendall was quick here right out of the box yesterday morning. He was 2 seconds lap quicker than anybody else. In the rain, he was very, very quick, and then at the end he got deposed by Dorsey Schrader and Jamie Gallus, who did magnificent times also, but he was very quick yesterday in the short time dry practice they had, and now he still looks quick as Gallus is all over him.
I'll tell you, Paul Genelosi needs to settle down. He's driving way over his head. Did you see that big slide and touch the brakes at an odd moment? He really needs. He's got Kendall in hot pursuit there. He knows it.
Of course, what it'll do, because he'll run the tires off the car. It's hot this afternoon. There was some rain. It seems to have gone away. You can see the sky's pretty blue, and I guess if Kendall knows he's going to run the tires off that car, Kendall driving with a very cool head.
Down the long main straightaway here at Minneapolis. 1 lap into the books already, and some distance opening up. The third place driver is Brian Simo now. Jamie Gallus was back in that spot earlier, but Kendall was up to second behind Genelosi at your lead row when they came to the green flag, and Genelosi trying to keep Kendall united. There's Fellows, and there's Gallus, who slipped back a little bit in the last couple of turns.
And Dorsey Schrader way back too. So our championship leader, Dorsey Schrader's really got his work cut out for him. While Tom Kendall, who's second in the championship, is looking really strong at this point.
And Fellows starting 6th, up to 4th already here at the early going, right behind Brian Simo. And you can see Kendall trying some different lines. Is he trying to jar Genelosi a little bit there?
You bet he is.
Genelosi is still the leader. Fellows at 4th right there at the Sunoco Chevrolet. Simo is 3rd. Kendall riding 2nd. Leighton Reese in that ASA Pontiac running into the number 10 position right now. And we'll be back in Minneapolis after this. Right away for one of the front runners, Jamie Gallus on pit road for right side tires. Looks as though he may have scuffed the wall, cut a tire or two, and that is going to take him pretty much out of contention here, at least in the early going. It'll take him a while to come back up through the field. He's been able to do that on one other occasion this year, but he had a little problem getting going. Now gets it refired and drops to the clutch, and he's off and away. Genelosi, meantime, still leading, and watch those brakes locking.
Genelosi flat spotting those tires right, left, and center. Boy, he must be having a very unpleasant ride, because as those tires get out of round, they get horribly uncomfortable. Now he's putting the block on Tommy Kendall. Tommy Kendall, a very, very cool, calm collector for a 29-year-old, and really giving Genelosi a hard time. But if Kendall gets around him, he's going to fly away. And of course, Fellows back there in 4th spot knows that's going to happen.
Kendall is having a terrific middle part of this season. He didn't start that fast in the Trans Am, but he's come on strong with his win at Cleveland just 8 days ago, and now this ace performance here. He was quickest throughout all of the practice sessions here. He really got to grips with this track. He was a very fast learner here.
Brian Simo, meantime, in 3rd spot, doing a great job holding off Ron Fellows, who is 4th. Right behind them, the Maverick for 5th, very strong as well. But we ride with Fellows up top. You see just how quick these Trans Am cars are through the streets of Minneapolis. Genelosi, the red and black Highwaymaster car, is your leader. Kendall right behind him in the black and green all-sport car. Then Simo, and we see Scott Sharp up to 5th now. Dorsey Schrader back in 7th spot.
Dorsey Schrader qualified so fast yesterday afternoon, had to start up. There's Van der Poel doing not a one-off drive. He's going to do 3 or 4 of the race before the end of the year, because he also was the fastest driver at Le Mans this year, where Sam and I were lucky enough to go just a couple of 3 weeks ago. So Van der Poel getting his feet wet in a Trans Am car at a pretty awful circuit for the first time out, I have to say.
Well, what a contrast. I mean, he was driving a Ferrari there. Oops.
He's offline. Looks like he may have gone around there in turn 8.
I think he's spun and knocked some body. Oh, the front end's all stowed in on his car.
We'll see John Miller move by there, and some of the other drivers in the field chasing R.J. Valentine. We look a little bit further back in the pack right now. Valentine is 14th. Miller is 15th. There's Dorsey Schrader going into turn 7, I believe that is, and down the straightaway to turn 8. And there's Van der Poel going around right in front of our camera.
Looks like an innocent lose, because you see there were no other cars around him, were there?
Yeah.
Van der Poel, by contrast, was driving a really light 220-mile-an-hour Ferrari at Le Mans. About the only thing that really is the same. Both cars are painted red.
Have 4 wheels and a steering wheel. That's about
Boy, Genelosi's driving the wheels off this thing, isn't he?
He is. Your leader is still Genelosi, the winner at Motorsport several weeks ago. Tommy Kendall right behind him in 2nd, trying to win 2 straight and get back into the thick of the chase for the driving title. And Genelosi goes wide. Kendall goes inside, and Tommy Kendall grabs the lead.
Tommy Kendall grabbed the lead there with an absolute perfect copybook pass. just drove right inside him and really got him shot flat-footed. And now, of course, Gianluigi is really going to be holding the field up, which, of course, what Tommy Kendall's going to want.
One of the drivers who we expected to contend today was Jamie Gallis. We saw him in the pits with tire problems. First, let's show you this lead change one more time as Gianluigi was offline coming out of that corner.
Well, he went to take the classic line. He went, you know, he just come out of a right-hand. He was going to take a left-hand. He got back to the right-hand side of the road to get quick through the... And Tommy just stayed on the left, jammed himself between him and the wall. There was absolutely nowhere for Gianluigi to go. Good, clean pass. And to give Gianluigi credit, he didn't try and shut the door when it was too late, which so many drivers do, and of course caused an accident. Whoa, there goes
turn one. Here's Fellows.
Fellows now on the outside of this situation around Simo, but he pulls it off. That's terrific. Ron Fellows, that's a beautiful pass. He really timed that pass superbly, and it proves now there's Dorsey trying to make a bid on Barr's set. So what you're seeing is a couple of the faster drivers who did not come out of that first lap that well placed, trying to move up. And we're going to find out right now. Remember, no one's ever run on this course in a Trans Am car before, so we're going to find out, is it a track you can pass on or not? And I think we're already finding the answer is probably yes.
Certainly the drivers, Fellows and Kendall, they told me yesterday they thought it'd be a very racy race course. There was very little practice here because of the weather yesterday. Only one wet qualifying session, so these drivers have had very little time on the track at dry speeds, the kind of racing speed we're seeing here this afternoon. Brian Simo in fourth spot right there. There's Fellows, who's made the move. He started sixth. He's up to third here in the early going. We're 6 laps in here at Minneapolis. Derek Daly on pit road.
Just want to give you the final on Jamie Gallis. Have a look at his front tire here. Huge scuff marks in the sidewall, and there's telltale blue paint right here. So he hit something on the racetrack, either the concrete wall or another car.
Well, there are several cars out there that have blue on them, including, I would suggest, Ron Fellows. I think they were very close in that first turn.
Ron Fellows and, of course, Dorsey Schrader has got a lot of blue on his car. But there you see Jamie Gallis on his own now, a long way down, and he is going to have an awfully long afternoon. What he needs now, like he needs oxygen, to caution.
He started third, back to 22nd spot. Remember, at Detroit, the similar situation developed. He made a nice drive to come back up through the field at Detroit several weeks ago. So
yes, he did, but he stalled out when he reached about 8th or 9th. It got tougher then, didn't it? It will again today, too.
Meantime, we ride with Tommy Kendall, who's your race leader, and he has opened up probably 10 or 12 car lengths now on Paul Gentilozzi, who's riding in second spot. Remember, Gentilozzi had the pole in the Fast 5 in Virgin. He was fifth quick qualifier. Kendall lined up alongside on the lead row and took over 3 laps into this race. Fellows, though, unable to get close to Gentilozzi at the moment.
Yes, a bit of a surprise that Ron Fellows is not making more ground up on Gianluigi. Gianluigi is settled down now. He's not locking up the tires like he was. He's not fishtailing like he was, so he's reserving his tires just a little bit. There you see Brian Simo has slipped back to fourth spot behind Fellows. And right behind him is Scott Sharp, a guy who's a 2-time Trans Am champion, won an awful lot of these races, and having really a pretty lackluster year. And I would have thought he'd have been going better than he is.
Sharp is fifth behind Brian Simo. The lead in the hands of Tommy Kendall at Minneapolis, the first Children's Grand Prix. And we'll be back after this. Of Minnesota, the SCCA Trans Am Tour. We're under caution, some oil on the course. While all this has been developing, some stories taking place on pit road as well. The pace car coming down pit road. We're ready to go back to green flag racing in just a moment here. And it's going to be in the hands of Tommy Kendall as the field snakes back and forth to warm up the tires. We see Brian Simo right in there in third spot. Kendall will lead the field on turn 13 and down the main straightaway here in just a moment. Ronnie Fellows, who started sixth, is up to third. Kendall brings him up onto the main straightaway. Gentilozzi, who had the pole in the early lead, sitting second, and we're back underway with green flag racing to begin lap number 13 here at Minneapolis.
Ron Fellows is going to make a pretty heroic effort to get by Gianluigi here, but he fails again. Gianluigi locking up the front brakes. He's got too much brake on the front for this type of circuit.
I think Gentilozzi had a good chance to talk to himself during that yellow. He drove really beautifully, but I stress, a bit over his head. I think he's steadied out now. David, I'm sure you've had that happen in the cockpit. Sometimes you say, I got to just pull this thing back a little bit.
And this is the sort of circuit where you try like heck, and the harder you try, the worse you go. It's really, really weird.
You have to drive under control.
Yeah, street circuit, you need absolutely controlled aggression. You need to be very, very aggressive. You need to be extremely controlled. You've only got to look at the walls around you to see that. Unlike a Road America or a Mid-Ohio or what's there, there's no put the wheel over the edge here. It's if you go wrong, into the wall.
And you know who's terrific at that? Tommy Kendall. And it's no surprise to me that he's leading this race, because when you talk about controlled aggression, Tommy Kendall is that. And I think in view of the injuries to his feet the difficulty he has shifting and so on, it's all the more remarkable what he's able to do here.
But he is only pulling away pretty slowly at the moment.
Kendall is your leader right now. He's been the leader for the last 10 laps. Derek Daly on pit road. That will get to Derek in just a moment. Paul Gentilozzi rides in second spot. Ron Fellows is third. Gentilozzi's crew chief is Mark Strickland. Derek?
Yes, indeed. Marcus here watching closely what Paul does. That is a hell of a street fight he's in out there. Has he said anything?
Yeah, they got quite a fight going. He does have a lot more push in the car right now than he'd like to have. We're hoping that as the fuel burns off, it'll come better for him.
And David, as you know, when you have push or understeer turning into the apex, you can't get the power on early enough to power out of these corners.
No, you've got to be able to, on road circuits like this, street circuits, you've got to be able to brake and turn in at the same time. And if you've got push and you put more weight on the front wheels, that push gets worse, and then the front tires get run right off the car.
Gentilozzi seems to have gotten it under control now. We saw him lock the brakes a few times earlier. He's driving a much more even pace at the moment, but that's allowing Kendall to take off. Kendall's got 10 car lengths on these field.
And of course, Ron Fellows will be very anxious to get around Paul Gentilozzi because he doesn't want to get stuck back in the cold air watching Tommy Kendall disappear.
There's the battle for fourth. Brian Semo, the Valvoline Ford, the 22 car. Right behind him, Scott Sharp, the Indy Racing League co-champ this season. He's riding in the 5th spot in one of the Pickett Racing Chevrolets. Two-time Trans Am champion Sharp coming back to the series this year. Having trouble getting going. One car off the course. Looked like Dino Crescentini was offline there.
I think it was Dino Crescentini for the yellow flag. Just held out of that one station.
I think Brian Semo, don't you guys, is having one of his best drives of the year.
Definitely.
Here it is. It's his second season, and he is really starting to move and move hard.
Gentilozzi trying to hang on to second spot ahead of Ron Fellows. You know, Fellows can get by here. This would rekindle that Fellows-Kendall rivalry that we've seen so many times in the last couple of years in Trans Am. Meantime, Mike Jennings waving the yellow flags, caution on the speedway. Dale Finline is on pit road. Derek Daly heading in that direction. Derek, what's going on?
And yet again, another puncture for one of these competitors. Left front, Dave Phelan radioed in to Emery Donaldson. Emery said, get in here as soon as you can. They only changed one tire and sent him back out.
Left front tire for Phelan from South Carolina. We mentioned Crescentini off the line, the racing line. Earlier, we could see that green rear end of that Camaro in one of our earlier camera shots. They pushed Crescentini off the course, so he should be ready to resume here in just a moment. 15 laps into the books in Minneapolis. Kendall is your leader. Back with more in a moment. Welcome back to the streets of Minneapolis, the inaugural Children's Grand Prix of Minnesota. Today, Rick Benjamin, Sam Posey, David Hobbs, Derek Daly here to bring you the action under caution for Dino Crescentini, who went off course. But earlier, some other drivers had problems.
Greg Pickett brings the Rain-X number 6 Camaro in. The engine has gone flat. They're looking to see if the dead cylinder can be located and done with a quick fix before he loses a lap under this yellow.
Trying to fix it. Watch the crewman here. He's going to dive through the window. Looks like they're going to switch ignition boxes. Put the hood on. They send Pickett back out. Meantime, Jamie Gallus with that cut tire. He came in for fuel. They dumped 5 or 6 gallons of fuel in that car to try to maybe get him to the end of the race without needing another pit stop. One of the crewmen, the gas man, was covered in fuel. Tony Lumley being doused there, having the water rinsed over his body and his clothing by some of the fire workers trying to give him a little margin of safety. These cars are not designed for refueling stops. They took pit stops out of the Trans Am a few years ago.
They did indeed, but of course, as we heard earlier, these guys think they're about anything up to 9 laps short. If they under green all the time, we're up to about 6 laps under the caution now, which gets them almost into their window. But old Jamie Gallus thought he put some fuel in, because if all these guys have to stop, he's on the same lap. He could suddenly snag a win from way back.
Sure could. Pace car is in. Now, the pit road area is not where the start-finish line is. This, of course, laid out a little differently from what you might ordinarily expect. Pit road runs between turn 11 and 12. The main straightaway starts at turn 13. Tommy Kendall now moving through 12 and heading up to 13. Should get the green here any moment. Gentilozzi with Fellows. Look at Fellows driving right up behind him at the start.
Right with him. Yeah, Fellows 6. I've had one go. I've been up another one.
Green flag to get lap 16.
Gentilozzi's got awesome power this year. There's no doubt about it. We saw it at Mosport, and we see he locks up those front brakes again. He's obviously got far too much brake on the front, and I would say that his brake balance bar mechanism is broken. He can't wind it off, because he must be trying to wind it off.
Scott Sharp there in 5th. We saw him go by. Brian Semo is 4th. Morris Said in 6th. The white number 14 all over the back end. Sharp trying to get by. And Dorsey Schrader, who was the fast qualifier in the rain yesterday. He's the point leader. Started 5th. He's back to 7th. He's been able to make no headway so far.
Dorsey Schrader not making the headway that I thought he would do. But, of course, it's not easy to overtake all circuit. Although Tommy Kendall had a beautiful pass to the lead. Obviously, Dorsey Schrader finding it very hard to get around the guys in front of him.
Well, look at the quality of the field. Look who he has to pass. Boris said, who's one of the great drivers in the series this year. Scott Sharp, multiple winner of the championship, and as you said, Rick, the IRL co-champion, winner of Daytona and Sebring. I mean, you don't just drive past these guys, even if you are Dorsey Schrader.
Scott Sharp must be pretty frustrated there. We see him in the turquoise car going out of the picture right in front of Boris said, because he is such a multiple winner here, and this year just is not going how it should do for him, and I think it's all to do with the way the car's set up and how he just can't get the car done the way he wants it. I don't really know what it is, but it must be very, very frustrating for him.
Leaders down the main straightaway. Kendall in the black and green car still out in front. Gentilozzi, the black and red Highwaymaster Chevrolet, right behind him in second spot. A little later on, we'll show you Leighton Reese. A call needs to go out to this local driver. It is V6 Pontiac Grand Prix. Reese is up to 8th. And we showed him just a moment ago down the main straightaway. We're going to take you back through the field. There's Set. Schrader is in 7th spot. Reese a couple of car lengths back in 8th. Great battle up front between the top 7 right now as we see Schrader and that group of cars funneling up onto the straightaway. John Gooding now has moved to 8th. Derek Daly, what's going on?
Indeed, with Tom Gloy, whose car has qualified 1st and 2nd for the first time ever in the history of you as a team owner. But there's still a fuel issue here, Tom. Have you had enough yellow flags to race hard from here to the end, do you think?
Derek, every car will be different, of course. Different teams get different fuel mileages, and that'll be that's the concern now. I can't honestly tell you right now whether we've done enough yellows. At least I wouldn't want to tell you right now.
Okay, that's fair enough. But tell me, is Dorsey, as they scream by us here, Tom can hardly hear me, is Dorsey playing it cool now at this stage of the race?
Sorry.
Is Dorsey taking it easy at this stage of the race?
Yes. At the moment, because of the problem on the first lap, we're riding right now. We need to burn some fuel so we can get into position to win it at the end.
So he's not actually racing flat out now. He's going to try and let this race come to him.
That would be quite an achievement. He is back in 7th, and as we've documented throughout this season, it's hard to make ground up from 7th spot in a Trans Am. We watch the leaders roll by. This is out of the jug handle down toward turn 4. Tommy Kendall is still the leader in Minneapolis. We're a quarter of the way home. Back with more after this. The Children's Grand Prix of Minnesota. Glad to have you with us today for the SCCA Trans Am. Jamie Gallows has been on fire since that stop for fuel and those tires earlier on. He's up behind Leighton Reese now, who is 9th. Gallus in 10th position. He's made his way through the field from 22nd. He's passed a dozen cars in a handful of laps.
Well, of course, he was lucky he had those 2 yellow caution flags, which brought him up to the group. But still in all, he had to get by him. He's going to try and go down the inside of Leighton Reese as they go into turn 1. No, can't do it this time. But of course, obviously, as the further he gets up in the field, the more difficult it's going to be to pick these guys off. When he gets up to about 6th spot, he's going to have a heck of a job to move forward.
A few more cautions, though, and the field will stay bunched, and he'll have some opportunities. Reese right ahead of him, being shown now in 10th spot. Eric Vanderpoel, who spun earlier, is 9th. There's the red number 15 car. Running in 9th, R.J. Valentine back a little further in 12th as we see Gallus to the inside of Reese. He's going to make the pass and move into the top 10. So Jamie Gallus up to 10th spot now after restarting at the back end of the field with tire problems and then a fuel stop early on.
So now he's off in hot pursuit of Eric Vanderpoel in the red number 15 car there. You see the beautiful Glidden ICI paint job on that Jamie Gallus number 2 car there. Beautiful looking car. Him and Ron Fellows, his teammate. And then behind them is R.J. Valentine in that yellow car.
So some good action further back in the pack here in the streets of Minneapolis. We're on a 1.6 mile, 13 turn straight circuit. First time for this event on this race course. Tommy Kendall still showing the way. Made that pass on Gentilozzi on lap number 3, and he's been all alone out in front ever since. Gentilozzi about a 2nd and 3/4 behind, about 8 or 9 car lengths as they blast down the front straightaway here in Minneapolis.
You know, you spoke of Gentilozzi's acceleration, David, but I wonder if Ron Fellows isn't a little bit weak on acceleration by contrast. They're running a very conservative engine, Chevrolet this time, in response to the fact that they have blown up 3 just 8 days ago in Cleveland and running scared a little bit. I think Ron Fellows is doing a beautiful job with a car that I bet you has a little less power than some of the others out there.
Another driver who deserves a call. We see John Gooding back a little further in the field. He is 8th. We showed you at the top of the broadcast how he wiped out his race car yesterday in the rain. He was backing up out of a runoff area when Don Sack came sliding in and pounded the back of the Mountain Dew Mustang and ruined the first car. This This is actually Tommy Kendall's backup car that they reskinned for Gooding to start the race in today. Gooding was able to take the green flag in the field in his normal starting spot, but he qualified only 18th. He has moved up nicely and is 8th right now.
When I talked to Gooding about his neck, he just grinned and pointed to the headrest right behind him. He said, "This is what saved me."
I'm sure it did. That was a hard lick he took.
It was terribly unfortunate, of course, for Don Sack. Everybody was locking up in that corner. Don Sack slid into him and, of course, wrote his car off, so he's not started today. Very unfortunate for one of the guys who's a bit of a shoestring effort anyway as we go back. Now on board with Tommy Kendall down the front straight. These Trans Am cars reaching about 155 miles an hour as they go into turn 1.
Kendall was a part of that mix-up, too, with Gooding because he had gone off course first. Meantime, we look a little further back. Good battle here. This is for 4th. Brian Simo in the 22. Scott Sharp in the 33 all over, but unable to get by here with turn 2.
That's going to be a very good match because Simo is really fired up today. He obviously has taken to this particular course. Scott Sharp, a great champion, having a great year in other forms of racing, but so far unable to show anything really big in Trans Am. And he's pushing, but I don't think, David, he's got anything superior really to Brian Simo. Do you? I think he's playing mind games right now.
Well, I think he's just a little bit quicker. Whoa, sliding there, because I noticed that all of them are being very careful not to power slide these cars out of these turns, because once they start that racket, the tires come off the car.
You've got to burn some fuel off before you can really start to put the pedal to the metal coming off the turns.
Battle for 4th. We're watching Brian Simo and Scott Sharp. This is brand new asphalt on a lot of the racetrack, and traditionally you think of new asphalt not being very tough on tires. Is this an abrasive surface we have here?
I don't think it's particularly abrasive. It's just that these corners are so sharp and so tight, and there's so much acceleration going on. I mean, the torque multiplication of these engines through a second gear or even a first gear in a couple of these corners, it's just enormous.
Boris said, yeah, he has gotten by Dorsey Schrader now. So Schrader dropped back to 7th once again as Sed moves up to 6th position. There's Ron Fellows in 3rd. Simo is 4th. The 33 of Sharp riding 5th. Everything's stable right now. We completed 22 laps of 68 today here at Minneapolis. Glad to have you with us for the SCCA Trans Am Tour. We'll be back with more of the Children's Grand Prix after this. In the month of July, the Children's Grand Prix of Minneapolis. 31 laps complete. Tommy Kendall is our leader. Paul Gentilozzi and Ron Fellows the top 3. Boris Said with a good move. One car missing from that top 10. The 22 of Brian Simo is falling back quite a ways. Being shown 13th right now, right behind Leighton Reese and R.J. Valentine. Kendall with a good lead. Here's what happened a few laps ago. Simo and Scott Sharp here going into one of the corners, and Simo goes right around.
Well, I guess I'd have to say that was a racing accident, although pretty much Simo's corner, because he was still well in front, but
car owner Tom Gloyd didn't like that very much. He's down talking to SCCA official Doug Robinson, hoping for something to get a call from the officials, but obviously nothing much being changed at this point.
We're aboard now with Tommy Kendall, and I think he's driving one of his great races today. I really do. Kendall, as we talked about earlier, is smooth and aggressive at the same time. I mean, these are words you use, but when you watch the car closely, notice that he fights no slides. Look at Gentilozzi come in to forget the fire, but he was sliding that car. Somehow or other, Tom Kendall manages to keep that car neat and tidy underneath him, and it doesn't mean he's got a superior car that he's just tracking along in. It means he's got his balance of what he does at the wheel so perfect that it just doesn't look spectacular.
He's running a terrific race. Took the lead on lap 3. He's led all the way since, and we're just about halfway. Gentilozzi there in the red car. 2nd, 3rd is Fellows on pit road. Here's Derek Daly. And we'll get back with Derek in just a moment. Kendall still the leader. Dan Biggs, the team manager for Tommy Kendall, standing by with Derek. Derek, what's Tom saying to Dan?
Indeed, Dan Biggs last week at Cleveland, total dominance by Tommy Kendall, and it seems to be the same way now. Has anything changed in recent weeks?
Well, we've been working on the car, we've been working on the engines, we've been working on Tommy, and it's paying off. The car is really fast. Fuel's going to be a consideration here, but we're not going that fast, so I think we're going to be in good shape. We'll just wait and see what happens at the end.
Okay, what do you mean fuel may be a consideration? Does that mean you got to be careful from here on to the end of the race?
Well, I wouldn't say careful. You just don't want to use it up. If there's a yellow, you're being careful. Like now he's got a little, like a 2-second margin. We're just taking it easy right there. Gentilozzi's not catching us, not a threat there. We're just hanging on to see what happens.
Total control here.
It'll be interesting to see if the fuel story does play out. We were hearing they needed 9 laps of caution. I don't think they've quite gotten 9 laps of caution yet, but we're only halfway into the race. Kendall, your leader by by a good margin. Bill Saunders in the 8 car there. He's about to be passed, lapped by Kendall. We understood that Saunders had lost a couple of gears in his transmission. That's the reason why that Highwaymaster Chevrolet is quite a bit slower than his normal pace. Brian Semo, meantime, trying to come back up through the field. He's being shown 11th right now. A lap down to the leaders, but a nice charge back because he was back as deep as 20th at one point.
Yeah, that was a very unfortunate spin when he and Scott Sharp got together, and it's one of those things that raises the blood pressure severely. But when you're racing in streets like this, boy, it's hard to get it absolutely dead right every time. And with more on that, let's go down to Derek Daly.
Indeed, with one of the most popular men here all weekend, Leighton Reese, local hometown boy, tremendous run in qualifying. What put you out of the race?
Well, it appears that the Trap Arctic Fieldworks hot rod broke an upper control arm. Boy, we're really disappointed. We were actually, I wouldn't say we're coasting, but we were going a wee tad conservative, knowing that brakes and things like that are going to be a problem down the road here.
Leighton, with a V6 engine, how big a disadvantage is that on a street circuit like this?
Well, I don't think it's much of a disadvantage. You know, at Watkins Glen or Elkhart Lake, we'd like to run a V8, but, you know, we're on a super budget, and these are a bunch of modified parts left over from ASA, and I think, you know, we're proud of what the crew has done here, and we've built a good car.
I think they've had a wonderful weekend here with the hot rod, as he calls it himself.
Reese had qualified 8th in the rain yesterday and was doing a nice job. He had run as high as 7th today. You can see the car backing up the last several laps. Upper control arm knocks Leighton Reese out of the hunt. Meantime, John Gooding is on the move in his Mountain Dew car. He's up to 7th, right behind Dorsey Schrader, who was the fast qualifier here.
The puzzle is, why is Dorsey going so fast? Not so much. Here we've got
trouble on the course. That looks like Jen Losey.
Sure does.
Said. Kukar's in the wall and heavy damage to Boris Said's automobile. Jen Losey gets pointed in the right direction. Here's his teammate
Saunders coming around along with Gallus, Jamie Gallus, in that white front-end car.
So Gallus will gain a few spots here as Jen Losey goes around. There's some fiberglass and carbon fiber going out on the race course. We've had a tangle on the racetrack, and one of the contenders here, Jen Losey, in trouble. Let's take a look. Jen Losey, Fellows going by for second. Here's Boris Said. Jen Losey was offline, comes back on course, and he drills Boris in the door and turns both cars around.
Boy, Jen Losey looks like the bad guy in this, doesn't it?
I think Jen Losey was pushing badly, pushed way out, almost went down the escape road, then gathered it all up, lurched back onto the track, and of course nailed the side of Boris Said, who was trying to follow Fellows through.
Scott Sharp, meantime, takes advantage. Caution on the speedway. Sharp comes in for some right side tires. They change the right rear quickly. The Jackman going up with the car. We can see the tire about to be changed. Remember, these are like Indy cars. They have one big lug on these wheels. Sharp is down and away. We are under caution once again here in Minneapolis. Kendall is your leader. Back with more in a moment. Losey and Boris Said have just gotten together. Ron Fellows is up to second now behind Kendall. Boris Said came to pit road a moment ago. They need to do heavy work to this Roush Mustang. The passenger side door is gone. Look at crew chief Dan Binks. They're trying to get the bodywork off the car. They can't do it. They change a couple of rear tires. They start working on the muffler. They drop the jack, send him back out so he's not lapped, but Said undoubtedly will have to come back to pit road. Sam Posey, David Hobbs. It looks as though Ron Fellows may think this is his time to go.
Well, it may easily be. You see him pressing inside of Kendall there. I think they had contact for a split second. Whoa! Ron Fellows got into a lurid slide there for a second right behind Tommy Kendall. And, of course, this is Dorsey Schrader's first opportunity. Suddenly, this race has come alive.
Schrader up to third, now going up second. Dorsey Schrader to the inside of Fellows. We heard Tom Williams say they thought this race might come to them, and it may yet do that. We're 40 laps in of 63, so we're down to the last 20 laps or so here.
And look at John Gooding.
Oh, there's trouble there. They're side by side. Look at that. This is the twisty part of the track where they go from street corner to street corner, just taking a block at a time and making a turn. Look at that.
Jamie Gallus is back in the hunt, too, after those early tire troubles. He's up to 5th.
And John Gooding hanging in.
And Dorsey goes back for second.
Big ramifications in the championship because Dorsey laying
three wide here. And Gallus goes by to take over second spot.
Oh, my gosh, and Ron Fellows drops right back to 5th spot. So he's pushed out by his own teammate going through turn 11.
Ron Fellows was bidding for the lead at the opening of this lap, and he's now back in 5th. I believe something went wrong there briefly for Fellows when he touched Tommy Kendall.
And John Gooding is offline. Fellows goes by him. This is up onto the main straightaway. Let's correct something we said. That was not for second. That was for third. Fellows back in gear and back at speed. Dorsey Schrader now being shown in second spot. Gallus is third. Kendall long gone in the lead as all this dicing has gone on in the last half lap. There's Kendall flashing by our camera. Dorsey Schrader in second. Gallus now, who had that
guy out there who can drive absolutely firm in the knowledge that he's not going to run out of gas. The other guys have maybe just been worrying a bit.
Now Ron Fellows is back in full cry, apparently.
Yeah, it seems to be, but I don't know. He definitely lost some ground, and I think that there was a reason there. David, I don't think fuel is an issue anymore. Do you, after that last yellow?
It shouldn't be now after that last yellow. They got to about this 9-lap window that they were looking for. Here comes Ron Fellows. We think his engine is a little bit softer this week, but then of course so is Jamie Gallus, and he seems to be going like Jack the Ripper up there. So I don't know really whether maybe Ron just missed a gear.
Yeah, that's certainly possible.
We talk about the soft engines. It's really just a question of being a little bit conservative. The Chevrolet people felt that Ford had an edge and that they had to take some chances to match them. They lightened some things like the connecting rods. They did some high compression and so on. They backed all that off.
And we'll see if that results in a couple of good finishes. Derek Daly on pit road.
Indeed, the Roush Racing crew have had all sorts of problems here in the pit lane. John Gooding now comes in. He has a puncture on the left front, but Boris Said's car is beginning to disintegrate around him out on the racetrack. The tailpipe is a concern for Dan Binks, but he said he's just going to let him run on. Dan Binks is just over here. Let me try grab a word with him. He's on the radio to Boris. Said, can you let Boris continue to run in the condition the car is in?
Yeah, we're going to have to. I mean, we need to get points for Boris. That car's tore up pretty good. Away goes. I mean, he had a good run. Sharp ran into him. Away goes.
And Kendall continues to cruise on.
Yeah, we got one car in the front. We need to stay there.
As John Gooding races back out of the pit lane after that left front puncture.
Meantime, Boris Said on the main straightaway. Fiber flapping. He's got horrible aerodynamics with the back of that bodywork all gone.
Now the bodywork's flown off, so it must be on the track somewhere, so we could be looking for another full course caution here.
Another
that's
piece.
lying out there somewhere, and of course he's got no downforce at all.
Boris Said was up in the top 5 earlier with that wreck and the resultant loss of the back bodywork there. He's being shown back now in the 14th position and 1 lap down to the leaders. So Boris Said trying to stay straight and stay on the course because the manufacturer's point battle is very, very much in everybody's mind here. The two companies, Ford and Chevrolet, tied with 62 points each as we work on round number 9 of 14 races this year in the 1996 Trans Am Championship battle.
But if the race was to finish now, of course, Ford would vault into the lead with a first and a second position, with Tommy Kendall leading and Ron Fellows being third for Chevrolet, and of course Jamie Gallus fourth for Chevrolet. So it looks like, but it's a very close, much smaller point spread. Wow, here's the race with Greg Pickett and Brian Simo, who was going so well on that next one.
Pickett has given up 8th now to Brian Simo, who had trouble earlier. He's gotten it pointed in the right direction, and he's come back now and run very strongly up into 8th spot. So Brian Simo up into 8th ahead of Greg Pickett now, who's 9th. Pickett with that podium finish last week in Cleveland, getting into the record books once again in the Trans Am competition. The history of this great series now in its 30th anniversary season. So Pickett trying to hang on in the top 10. He had motor problems earlier here today, as we showed you.
Yeah, because we had the hood off that car in one of those caution periods, which was good for him, and they fiddled around the engine. It lost power, thought it lost the cylinder, but obviously from the way it's going now, it is running on all 8 now.
And that is the battle. 8th spot belongs to Brian Simo. The lead belongs to Tommy Kendall. 22 laps to go in Minneapolis. Back with more. Was the Children's Grand Prix of Minnesota, 46 laps completed. We've got a great race taking shape for 3rd spot with the Chevrolet pilots Jamie Gallus and his teammate Ron Fellows. At 2nd place, Dorsey Schrader moving by. Lap car in the way. Gallus with a great drive. He's got Fellows back. We thought Fellows was having problems. Now he is back in gear.
He's back in gear and back with a vengeance right behind his teammate. Oh, Jamie Gallus smoking badly there. Looks like the engine's...
Well, you hate to say that.
Tire smoke.
With all the trouble they've had with motors on that team the last several weeks. Both cars going out last week in Cleveland with blown motors. 13 blown engines for the American Equipment Racing team so far. And here's Fellows in 4th trying to get by Gallus. And as we mentioned, Gallus had a horrible start today. Cut a tire, stopped for fuel, and restarted at the back of the pack about 5 laps in.
Oh, we see that smoke. Is that coming off the front tire?
I can't tell. It seems incredible to me that he is running 3rd at this point. Jamie Gallus, when he was stopped in the pits being refueled,
there's Fellows to the inside trying to make the move, and Ron Fellows gets by Gallus. So Fellows, who had problems after the last restart, is back up to 3rd spot now, dropping Gallus to 4th.
Taking valuable points away from Jamie Gallus. He's lying 3rd in the championship at the moment with 171 points to Dorsey Schrader's 216. so he's not out of it yet. But of course, this won't help him at all. Whereas poor old Ron Fellows is pretty well out of it with only 139 going into this race.
Now remember that Gallus and Fellows are teammates. You might think there'd be team orders. Not the case at all, right there, Daly?
I don't think so. Will Moody, any team orders out there? Nope. Yeoman service from Jamie Gallus, considering the trouble he had on that first lap with the puncture.
Jamie's doing a really excellent job. I just hope he hasn't used his car up too much.
Any indication that the 210, which is that softer of the Goodyear tires, have given up or may before the end of the race?
No, not that I know of.
Well, thank you, Will.
Will Moody,
a
man
of few words. You just
Very
can't
few
stop
words.
that guy talking, can you? I mean, just kind of shut him up and take the microphone.
But what he says is well worth listening to.
Both Gallus and Fellows with the soft 210s on the front and the medium compound 430s on the rear. And both those drivers have really pushed the cars pretty hard.
They have indeed, and of course Dorsey Schrader has got a similar setup, whereas Tommy Kendall has used the guy who's a little bit pushy with his tires. He's gone for the harder compound, the 430 all round.
Check out that old Ron Fellows has recovered from that, whatever it was that happened, and he is now running a very strong third and starting to look at Dorsey Schrader.
Definitely gaining on Dorsey.
Right, whereas Dorsey is unable, it appears, to mount any kind of attack on the guy I'm calling Teflon Tom. Because I really think Kendall just seems to have escaped all the problems of this race, hasn't he?
I have to say that, Tommy, I'm sure that that Ron Fellows must have missed a gear in all that Shimano got pushed back. And it took him a couple of laps to get back into stride, but boy, oh boy, look at him now, right behind Dorsey Schrader.
He's found the right gear in the last couple of laps because he's all over Schrader for second spot. Kendall, meantime, way out in front, about a 10-car length lead. We're coming up here in about 15 laps to go at Minneapolis today, but this is the race for second. The Ray Best is forward. Point leader Dorsey Schrader and Ron Fellows, the four-time series runner-up in third.
David used a technical term there, the schmozzle.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah, I think that's the English version of a carambolage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
A grand carambolage.
Thanks for explaining that. Those of us who didn't get to go to the pond this year. Technical terms, but this still the battle for second spot here at Minneapolis. Schrader in the 12 car right in front of Fellows in the 3. And remember that Fellows didn't line up in a very good spot today. Started back at 6th, first time in a long time. He's been out of the fast 5 in qualifying in this part of the manufacturers battle. At the moment, Kendall with the race in hand for Ford and Schrader second for Ford. These two manufacturers tied with 62 points apiece coming in here this afternoon. Schrader with 16 career victories in the Trans Am. Fellows trying to get by him and get closer to Kendall.
The season appeared to be going to be a sort of Chevrolet season, I thought, at the outset when Ron Fellows won in St. Petersburg. He seemed to be ready for a dominant season. The mood has shifted entirely in Ford's favor, and unless Fellows can do something, remember, Fellows may be out of the championship for drivers, but he can contribute heavily to the manufacturers' championship, so that's not over by any means.
Championships are such funny things, you know. All it needs is a couple of DNFs from Dorsey and a couple of wins from Ron Fellows, which he really could easily do. I mean, he's one of the winningest drivers in the series, and suddenly that points situation could change dramatically. But of course, it's somewhat like NASCAR. It's a very wide spread of points. You get points for leading, you get points for leading the most laps, you get points for qualifying, and it's very hard to put any significant ground between yourself and your followers by just winning the race. The way it is at the moment, Tommy Kendall would advance by 1 point over Dorsey Schrader.
What really counts, of course, is breaking down, and that's unfortunately what Ron Fellows with his 4 breakdowns has really crippled here.
Yes,
he's had 4 great finishes, 4 top 3s, and 4 past the top 15 because of the motor problems and then the differential that let go on them up in Limebrock back on Memorial Day weekend. So we ride along with Fellows, the American Equipment Chevrolet in 3rd spot, right behind Dorsey Schrader and his Tom going forward with the Ray Bestis colors there. Schrader, who's been the big winner so far, he's the point leader after 8 races. This is round 9 of 14. They move by a lapped car down into turn 4.
I think there's that Morris Said still going slowly. There's Morris Said going very slowly. Sans bodywork while we're in the French move. And unfortunately, Morris Said is not having any luck this season at all, whereas Dorsey Schrader, quite touch wood, boy, he's having a lot of luck.
Fellows all over Schrader there, working through the left-right-left combination.
This is fraud, and of course, Dorsey desperately needs to hang on to second because of the championship battle that's emerging with Tommy Kendall, who is winning the race. On the other hand, if he allows himself to get pushed off the road.
Trouble for one of the cars. That's Bob Ruman in the 23 who has slowed down. He's offline. We're going to get a caution, at least in that part of the track. Maybe not a full course.
Big time slowdown. I think he's hit the wall, hasn't he? The front of the car looks pretty much stove into me, is it? Yeah.
Does look it.
Clipped it with the left front there. So now that car stopped. almost certainly will be another full course caution.
And watch Schrader twitch there as he goes by the 76 of Jerry Simmons. He's able to keep the 3-car Fellows behind him, but Simmons forced Dorsey, it looked like, to get on the brakes a little hard there.
Now with just a few laps to go, the one thing that Tommy Kendall does not want to this stage is the full course caution. The yellow flags are out and the flag stands, so we're going to a full course caution.
Dorsey, Schrader, and Ron Fellows battling it out for second. Kendall is still the leader. He's led since the 3rd lap when he was able to shoulder his way by early leader Paul Gentilozzi. On the Grand Prix of Minneapolis, the Children's Grand Prix is going to come down to a shootout, it looks like. And we'll be back after this. Back to the Children's Grand Prix of Minnesota, Minneapolis on TNN Motorsports. Immediately following our broadcast today, join us for race day, full roundup of all the weekend's top motorsports news on TNN. Coming your way next. Coming up on about 10 laps to go here in Minneapolis, still under caution. We've got a couple of cars on pit road, 1 to go. We're told the lights are out on the pace car. A couple of cars on pit road a few moments ago. Let's find out what's going on there. Derek Daly.
Indeed, with Dennis LaCava, crew chief for Ron Fellows. Now, I know you just spoke to him on the radio. What's the concern over the restarts that he mentioned to you?
He just wants his car to be up and ready. You know, he pushed it a little early that last time, and a few cars got by him. He's worked his way back up to 3rd, and he's just concerned he doesn't want to fall back again. He's trying to keep his cars.
In fact, he's just got on the radio to him here again. While he gets on the radio, let me just give you a quick update. Bill Saunders has struggled mightily all day long because early in this race, he lost 2nd and 4th gear, elected not to stop to stay out, but he has struggled to keep that car and try and get some points. Scott Sharp ran very well. 10 laps earlier, he was the fastest car on the racetrack, and suddenly he lost about 1.5 seconds a lap. They feel the front tires went off. RJ Valentine lost 3rd gear first, then broke the gearbox. So he's out also on pit lane here.
Meantime, we saw Leighton Reese's car back on the track, and that's good for all the fans of that native Minnesotan who's turned in a nice performance here this weekend. Reese was solidly in the top 10 before suffering suspension problems. Meantime, we've got less than 10 laps to go, and Tommy Schrader got some guys right behind him who won a victory here today. Field moves down by start finish. The green flag is back out. Kendall is your leader. Right behind him is Schrader. Ron Fellows is 3rd, trying to move by, and it looks like Schrader with problems down in the first lap. Fellows trying to get by him. They make contact.
Schrader fighting back, though, having none of it. I mean, he had trouble. He just wouldn't let that set him back. Unbelievable. Dorsey, Schrader hanging on now in real time.
That was brake smoke. I thought it was a motor, the way all that smoke billowed down from the car.
That was some serious smoke coming off those rear tires.
And Sharp is up to 6 now. Let's look at it again. Here's Schrader in the blue and white car in 2nd spot.
Well, he obviously felt that he had to brake very, very late in order to keep Ron Fellows at bay. Fellows had that perfectly timed, but now the track turns back to the right, so even though Dorsey appeared to have been outplayed there and outdriven coming in, he was properly positioned.
So he's able to keep
both of them actually kept their heads very, very well there. Poor old Ron Fellows was on the outside, got out in the marbles. Dorsey had the inside, climbed right up on the curb to give Ron Fellows racing room, but had the line and managed to stay in front. So Ron Fellows' attempt there foiled. Very, very frustrating for him, but of course that's what big-time racing is all about. It's frustrating because these cars are so evenly matched.
Well, you say big-time racing. I mean, this is the Trans Am's 30th anniversary. I think it's a vintage year. Sure. Really. I mean, if you compile the highlights package from the action this year, it really delivers the goods.
It'd be a 2-hour movie, I'll tell you. Here's Scott Sharp a little further back, and here's Fellows again making the move for 2nd, and he gets by. Fellows in the Sunoco Chevrolet takes 2nd away from Dorsey Schrader. Scott Sharp, meantime, looked as though he made a pass to get up to 4th spot on Jamie Gallis.
Scott Sharp now breathing down Jamie Gallis' neck, as you say, very, very strongly. Look at Paul Gentilozzi going like mad there behind with no front hood of the car. So his downforce aerodynamics must be all shot. And behind him is his new boy, Eric Van der Poel. Right behind him, Simo back in the pits again.
Let's point out Gentilozzi is on the lead lap despite that hard wreck with Boris said earlier where all the bodywork went flying. It's cost him the hood off the Highwaymaster Chevrolet. But Gentilozzi with a nice run back up to 6th. Sharp right in front of him in 5th. And Gentilozzi giving him all he can handle. And here's Jamie Gallis to the outside of Schrader. The battle for 3rd. Sharp to the inside makes a move.
Sharp looking better. Sharp looking better than he has all year as he suddenly picks up 2nd place. Unbelievable. But we noticed the Sharp. Remember Derek's report. He had been the fastest car on the track about 10-15 laps ago. But then he cooked his tires and went off a 2nd and a half. Obviously, the yellow allowed his tires to cool down. Hence the move here. But whether he will face that same problem again, we'll have to see.
Let's reset for you now. Scott Sharp in the 33 is up to second, I believe, maybe third, because Ron Fellows, I think, is up ahead of this group. We'll get a look at that in just a moment. Jamie Gallus being shown back at fifth at the moment. We look ahead down the straightaway. There's Schrader, Gallus, and Jen Losey. And this is the battle for third, fourth, and fifth. Eric Vanderpool back there, one spot back further in the field. Tommy Kendall remains your leader. Just a handful of laps to go. Sharp goes by. We're going to show you one more time. Here's Kendall. This is what happened earlier now when Jen Losey got offline. Watch him drill Boris Said in the white car.
Wow, you see, Ron Fellows got down the inside of Gentilozzi, pushed him wide, or he didn't push him, but he got wide. Then he came right back straight into the side of poor old Boris Said, who just had no luck at all. But look at this race now for fourth spot. Dorsey Schrader, who had come up through the field from way back down at the beginning, came up to a good solid second, and after this last caution, it's all gone to pieces for him. He's now back in fourth.
Lead group showing a lot of shuffling here in the late going. Just a couple of laps to go now, and Kendall is your leader. Fellows is second. He's long gone. Boris Said is in trouble once again. Let's watch this. Remember, he lost the rear bodywork, and this is right into the tires at the end of turn 6. Just a moment ago, Boris Said off course into the tire barriers, and so his day will apparently end with him unable to come to the checkered flag and finish. We go on board with Tommy Kendall. Just a couple of laps to go. 5 to go now, according to our score.
Did you notice what I noticed? Look at the gap.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable. There's Ron Fellows in second. Scott Sharp made that move into third. I was wrong when I thought about second. And the interesting thing is, if we look at Paul Gentilozzi, when he comes by, I think, David, the source of his success is that he's still got that front spoiler. He's lost his hood, but he's still got the downforce generating spoiler that he needs.
Well, absolutely. And in spite of backing into or going into the side of Boris Said there, Boris Said's day is now completely run because he slid off going to turn 11.
Whoa, look at this.
This is the Gallus fourth now. Gallus to the inside gets fourth away from Dorsey Schrader. So we were thinking Schrader might come up and maybe make him run for the lead here. He's going to have a hard time holding out to the top 5.
Once again, this has just the most incredible consequences as to the championship, because Tommy Kendall is going to come out of this leading the championship if it were to end this way.
Quite a battle, well, a little bit deeper in the pack. Now, remember that Kendall is way off to a big lead with Fellows in second, and Scott Sharp has gone off now. He took third a moment ago, and he's run off now and opened up some advantage. This is the battle for fourth.
Just a quick overview on the design of this racetrack, which is by Alan Wilson, the track designer, Desiree Wilson's husband. I think this thing is proving to be one of the great racetracks that the Trans Am runs on, and this is the first year they've held it. I mean, here was a track that was only run on for the first time yesterday morning and is producing this kind of racing.
Wonderful competition.
Yeah, very safe racing too, because it's wide, it's relatively smooth, there's good run up, the corners are well designed.
Whoa,
Gentilozzi lights him up there.
He never has had those brakes right, has he?
It's amazing he's been able to keep all 4 wheels on the trouble he's had here this afternoon, and then to be up in the 6th position right now.
It's his personality, though. Gentilozzi's got a rough and ready guy. I don't think he's terribly upset by the fact that his car is missing and his brakes are all screwed up.
He can afford to put new body work on it. Jamie Gallus in the 2 car.
Schrader Smith and here's Gentilozzi to the inside. Dorsey is in some kind of trouble, obviously, guy. You say?
I would say so.
He must be having
I think he's cooked those tires. Oh, he maybe even has a flat on the left rear. Is that possible for Dorsey?
Gentilozzi now taking over 5th spot from Dorsey Schrader. That drops him out of the top 5. The fast qualifier this weekend. Out of the top 5 once again. Remember, he was 7th early on, came up to 2nd, and now has dropped way back. Gentilozzi moves to 5th, and that's a great run for Gentilozzi. After we saw that accident a moment ago, that was around lap 30 when that happened. He spent a lot of time on pit road, and he has come back up through the field.
The race of changing fortune, really. I mean, the only guy to remain immune from all this is Kendall.
Yeah.
I mean, as you said, he took the lead from Gentilozzi on lap 3, and he's just been untouchable ever since, despite being vulnerable on these restarts. He just pulls away. He's gone in his own world, and everybody else is smashing and bashing and exchanging positions.
We got a look a moment ago at the back end of Jamie Gallus's car. He's got some bodywork damage on the right front corner of the car and also on the rear. We'll look at Gallus going by there, so there's been an awful lot of contact between these top runners tonight.
It's amazing to me how Paul Gentilozzi is going so much faster than Eric Vanderpool, whose car is relatively unscathed, and there's Gentilozzi with no bodywork. Will have lost some of his downforce for sure. We know his front brakes are locking up, which could be the wrong tires. It could be he's got too much brake on the front. He's still quicker than Vanderpool.
And Jerry Simmons in the 76, a lap car in the mix there. Derek Daly on pit road. And we'll talk to Derek in just a moment. Dorsey Schrader, meantime, trying to hang on to at least a top 6 finish here in the last couple of laps. We've got 2 laps to go today here in Minneapolis, and Kendall is your leader. Derek Daly.
As the Ray Bestos Ford, that was the championship leader before the start of this race, begins to drop back. Tom, any indication of the problem that Dorsey Schrader has?
No, Derek, I think he's got his hands full. He hasn't said a word.
Hasn't said a word. That means he's in trouble that is not fixable by anybody here in the pit lane.
And one car has had serious problems develop. We'll get a look and see if it may be Dorsey Schrader's motor.
It is Dorsey Schrader, isn't it?
Yeah, look, smoke is coming from Dorsey for sure. Okay, just 2 laps to go. Again, I hate to keep harping on the championship implications are tremendous here because Dorsey has had a wonderful run without major mechanical problems. Possibly just 1 lap to go now, and he is obviously on the verge of major mechanical problems.
Is that his right turn, the front tire that's gone flat?
Trying to hang on and finish. It does look as though it's coming from the right front, and I think you're absolutely right, David. It looks as though the tire has let go on that car. There you see the smoke issuing from the right front corner of the number 12 car, and Dorsey Schrader, who's really tried hard here today, got up to 2nd at one point. The day just won't be his.
In fact, you can smell the tire smoke in the booth.
In the booth, we're located just along the main straight here on 2nd Avenue. But the tire, I gotta say, doesn't look that bad. I'm not so sure.
Do they run interliners in these tires?
No.
I'm not sure.
So Schrader is just trying to soldier on and get the car home at this point. This is Tommy Kendall. We go on board with the race leader. Kendall about to take the checkered flag for the 2nd consecutive week if all holds together. Should be the white flag this time around for the All-Sport Ford Mustang out of the Roush shops.
July belongs to Tommy Kendall, and boy, is it going to have implications in the championship.
Got a couple of weeks off for the Trans Am Tour. Mike Jennings waves the white flag over Tommy Kendall. 1 to go here in Minneapolis today. Here's Ron Fellows. We're on board with the 3 car. Fellows is 2nd. He's about 10 car lengths behind Kendall. Not much chance for Fellows to get up at this point. But
Is Kendall looking slow?
Yes, he is looking slow. And look at
Fellows is catching up. Ron Fellows is gaining ground here in the last lap.
Seduced into thinking that was the last lap, and now he's getting back into the action. We were confused momentarily. He may have been 2 because he seems to have recovered and is now once again standing on the gas. It's hard when you break your rhythm if, in fact, that's what happened.
Yeah, he thought it was the checkered flag.
That's what I think.
White flag just started and threw him out. And I expect Dan Binks probably said, hey, I think they've got the count wrong, but go for it.
1 to go, and we're on the last lap now at Minneapolis. Kendall in the black and green car. The leader, Fellows, his main rival of long standing in the Sunoco Chevrolet, right behind him now in 2nd. Fellows started 6th today. He's battled back a couple of times. He's 2nd behind Kendall. Kendall is your leader. Last couple of turns of this 1.6-mile street circuit here in Minneapolis, and Kendall trying to hang on for his 2nd consecutive Trans Am victory up onto the main straightaway for the last time this afternoon, and the checkered flag will wave over Tommy Kendall from Apopka, Florida, the winner here this afternoon of the Children's Grand Prix of Minneapolis.
See, they had to be told that he crossed the line because they're on the other side of the track right there in the pit area.
I think he's just done the 64-lap Grand Prix too, personally.
I do too.
That certainly could be the case. Those things do happen at times. But congratulations to Tommy Kendall and the Roush Racing team, the winners today here of the inaugural Children's Grand Prix of Minneapolis. We'll be back to meet the winner in Victory Lane. The Children's Grand Prix of Minneapolis. This is how Ron Fellows' afternoon came to an end after the checkered flag. Look at the fire around the ignition box. He had to call a firefighter over to douse the flames. Ron unbuckled and bailed out through the driver's side window after taking the checkered flag in 2nd spot. But maybe things are changing for Fellows.
Well, it happened after the race instead of during it.
Ron Fellows gets 2nd. Kendall, your winner. Scott Sharp with a nice comeback to 3rd. Jim Durhag up to 10th spot after starting in 22nd. In Victory Lane with the winner. Here's Derek Daly.
And the customary drink of all sport for the new championship leader by 1 point. The Ford Mustang with Kendall leads. You got to be pleased. 2 weekends of domination in a row.
Well, you know, we've been knocking on the door all year. The car's been awesome. The All-Sport car has been a freight train, and it's been derailed at a few tracks. So I was sucking on my drink bottle all day long. It was a hot, hard race. I think one of the key decisions was to go with more conservative Goodyears. They really were under me all day, and I had enough whenever I needed to. So I hope this race is a huge success as far as the Cancer Kids Fund's concerned. It's nice to be the first-time winner.
Back to you, fellas.
Great competition today. Tommy Kendall really unchallenged for much of the afternoon, but behind him a dogfight. After 9 races, here's your point standings. Kendall taking the unofficial lead by 1 point over Dorsey Schrader, who soldiered on, finished 6th with that tire problem.
Dorsey had an up and down day. Absolutely amazing to get out of this that close. For all intents and purposes, the championship is tied.
And good to see Scott Sharp back there in the top 5 again, too.
Great run indeed for Sharp late in the going. Ford with a 2-point lead now. 9 races in, 5 races remaining in the 1996 Trans Am season. Ford with the upper hand for now.
And I think that's going to be going right down to the wire this year. And I think the city of Minneapolis should be thankful for today. I think it's been a great event for the city and, of course, for the charity, the Cancer for Kids. And obviously, it looks like it's going to be an annual event here. Let's hope it is. Everybody was behind it. And they had a great race.
Sure did. Tom Kendall, the winner for the 2nd straight week. Trans Am next to Trois-Rivières in Canada, then to Watkins Glen. And you'll see it all right here. For Sam Posey, David Hobbs, Derek Daly, I'm Rick Benjamin. See you next time. I talked earlier with now 3-time winner this year, Tommy Kendall.
We had a pretty awesome mount today. The All-Sport car was fast in every dry session. We weren't quite up to snuff in the rain, so we're glad it was a beautiful day today. But, you know, we went on the harder compound Goodyears, and they were under us the whole day. So a little bit of everything. This track is tough. You can't afford to slip up at all, so we kept our head down and just drove the whole day.
2 wins in a row, a real resurgence underway for you. Is it that computer work you told me about earlier?
There's a little bit of that. I mean, this team has got a lot of depth, and we've been competitive in every race but one this year, and that was down to a bad tire choice. But, you know, we've been knocking on the door, and I figured once things started going our way, we could string a few of them together. So I never figured we were out of it. I knew we were out of it at the start, but I figured everyone would have a bad day or two, and by the 2/3 of the way, we hope to be back in the thick of it, and we are.
Competition today looked awfully tough out there. It was a great race from every standpoint we could see. What did you think of the event?
The event is first class, and I'll tell you what, as great as winning was, my highlight of today was when I saw 3 kids that I took some photos with here in January, had no hair and were so sore you could barely pick them up, couldn't touch them. They all came by today, and they're doing really well. One was named Kane, Mary, and Haley, and they look like normal little kids, very healthy, enjoyed the race, and, you know, that was as big a deal as winning today.
A lot of folks moved here this weekend by seeing some of the children who are surviving cancer with the help of the money raised partly here this weekend by this event. Trans Am moves to Three Rivers in Quebec in a couple of weeks. Then Watkins Glen, you'll see the Glen Round live here on TNN.